1630 hours. A world away from the headlines, a single Ukrainian MiG-29 became a ghost. Its target, the Mirivka Dam in Donetsk, now a vital steel and concrete artery pumping Russian supplies to the front. The pilot, callsign Falcon, knew the rules: stay hidden or die. Falcon was screaming across the earth at 880 kilometers an hour, barely 150 meters above the fields. He was using the land itself as a shield. The ancient, winding channel of the Dnepro River Valley was his trench. So far, the terrain was his only ally, but a clock was ticking on that safety. The cockpit display was already a hostile landscape. 3 different lights were pulsing. 3 different pairs of Russian eyes watching the sky. The S-400 Triumph, a missile system built for gods, was sweeping 38 kilometers away. From the south, the swift Tour M2 was tracking, and to the east, the Buk M3 was powering up, waiting its turn. Enough coverage to turn a MiG into nothing but aluminum confetti. 8 minutes. That's all the valley gives me. 8 minutes of silence before the land flattens out and I hit the shooting gallery. He saw the reconnaissance feed on his main screen. The dam was choked with supply trucks, using captured Ukrainian civilian drivers. This wasn't just a military target. It was a civilian disaster waiting to happen. The strike had to be precise, and it had to be now. The world outside the canopy was a blur of green and brown. Power lines flashed by, closer than a conscious mind could register. Falcon wasn't flying. He was dancing on instinct. His hands made corrections before his brain processed the danger. Pure muscle memory overriding thought. The SPO-15 radar warning receiver was Falcon's anxious companion. It was painting threats on its circular screen like a crazy, angry compass, a strobe of light for direction, but no distance. Slow sweeps from the S-400. 3 Mississippis, still searching, still 60 kilometers out. 2.5 Mississippis, closer. Their search beam is getting interesting. Close enough to worry, far enough to still have choices. Choice 1, stay low, stay safe. 8 more minutes. The hammer bomb on his center line ran its own quiet checks, a silent countdown to its moment of glory. GPS signal strong, INS stable, rocket motor armed, but the bomb needed altitude to reach its extreme range target. Altitude he didn't have at 150 meters. Worry about surviving the approach first, then worry about delivering a €250,000 weapon with a Soviet jet older than the internet. The fuel gauge was a harsher reality. 2,400 kilograms left. Home was 142 kilometers. He had 18 minutes over the target area before a perfect mission became a long, cold walk. And every climbing turn, every afterburner pulse, every evasion would chew through that margin. Low-altitude flying was thirsty work. With 8 kilometers left to the valley's end, Falcon nudged the throttles. He gained speed every second. Save now was a second less spent under fire. A win in combat aviation is just time bought. 1638 hours. He reached the edge of the valley, and the world exploded with sound. The SPO-15 went from slow searching to the sound of a McDonald's kitchen during the lunch rush. 6 emitters spiked at once. The S-400, which had been casually searching, snapped its beam onto him. He was no longer a ghost. He was the star of the show. Lock. Solid tone. Missile launch is imminent. The RWR was screaming the undeniable truth. The S-400's gravestone radar had him locked at 38 kilometers. At low altitude, that was the entire engagement envelope. The only reason the missiles weren't already flying was the Russian operator's reaction time, a precious 8-second delay from detection to launch. Falcon had 8 seconds. He rolled into a knife-edge turn, pulling a brutal 7 Gs, forcing his plane sideways while maintaining altitude. Turn the edge. This was applied physics. A Doppler radar works by sensing motion toward or away from it. By flying perpendicular to the radar beam, Falcon's relative speed dropped to 0. He looked exactly like the dirt beneath him. The radar literally couldn't tell the difference. The lock shattered, but the maneuver cost him dearly. Speed, energy, and position. He was heading away from the target, and now every Russian SAM operator for 80 kilometers knew where he was. Suddenly, the Tour M2 lit up, a close-range death machine only 8 kilometers to the south. The Tour, command-guided. No seeker to jam, no brain to fool. You have to break the ground lock. Falcon snap-rolled left and drove the nose down like a hammer, dropping from 150 meters to barely 50 in 2 seconds. Trees flashed past the canopy, close enough to count the leaves. As he dove, his left hand slammed the countermeasures panel. Chaff. 120 bundles of aluminum-coated glass fibers erupted behind him. For the S-400, it looked like the MiG had just exploded into a cloud the size of a football field. But the Tour operated on a different frequency. Falcon hit the dispenser again, releasing a second type of chaff, cut to a different length. Now he had a chaff corridor, a tunnel of false returns across multiple radar bands, a lane of electronic static he could hide inside. The Tour's radar tried to track, but kept losing him in the Earth's clutter. But the pilot wasn't finished. His left thumb flipped a single switch, ECM pod. The jamming pod came alive. It analyzed the tour's radar signal and created a fake ghost plane, a decoy, that appeared brighter and stronger right next to the real MiG. The jammer then slowly slid this fake plane away on the radar screen. The Russian operator, seeing two targets, would automatically follow the stronger, brighter one, believing it to be the real threat that was now climbing and moving away. "Track the ghost, comrade. The real plane is down here." The real MiG disappeared back into the ground clutter, but flying at 50 meters was flying on borrowed time. One powie line, one unexpected rise in the land, and he'd become part of the landscape. He had to climb soon, or risk what an accident report would call controlled flight into terrain. The release point for the hammer bomb was only 8 kilometers ahead. Whatever he was going to do, it had to happen now. Falcon made a choice. It was the decision of a combat veteran, not a flight school student. Create chaos. As everyone was shooting at him, no one could coordinate. It was messy, dangerous, but confusion was its own defense. His right hand gripped the stick, ready for the kind of maneuvering that would try to tear the plane and his body apart. 4 kilometers to the minimum release point. The next 60 seconds would determine whether this mission was a success story or a cautionary tale. The fuel gauge still promised a path home if nothing went wrong. But in combat, something always goes wrong. 1640 hours. Falcon did the one thing that would make every Russian threat receiver in eastern Ukraine lose its mind. The MiG's twin engines spat orange flames 6 meters into the sky. He went from invisible to a lighthouse on fire. Every radar operator within 80 kilometers got their Christmas present early. In the S-400 command vehicle, the target went from ground clutter to a bright climbing contact. 1,000 meters, 330 meters per second rate of climb. 5,000 meters in 10 seconds. The Russian computer was calculating an intercept solution, but the target's trajectory kept changing. The climb was insane, from 50 meters to 5,000 meters in 18 seconds, pulling 4 sustained Gs. His body weight quadrupled. The pressure on his head was immense. Gray out was beginning, peripheral vision fading to tunnel vision. He was buying altitude with his remaining consciousness. By going vertical, he made himself impossible to ignore, but also impossible to predict. He added a barrel roll to the climb, corkscrewing upward in a helix pattern. To the SAM operators, his path looked like a snake climbing a spiral staircase. Their fire control computers designed to predict a clean arc were failing. The predicted intercept point moved in circles, never staying still long enough for a clean firing solution. 3 different radars achieved simultaneous locks: the S-400, the Buck M3, and the persistent Tor M2. The RWR wasn't displaying individual threats anymore. It just screamed. Falcon's response: roll inverted at the top of the climb and pull through, creating a loop, a maneuver no sane pilot would attempt and thus no computer could predict. At 5,000 meters, inverted, nose pointing at the ground, he had it. The necessary altitude for the hammer, green bore, target lock, but he was centered in 3 engagement envelopes. The screams in his headset meant an early retirement was seconds away. Time to release or abort. No middle ground. He rolled upright and steadied the aircraft for exactly 2 seconds. In those 2 seconds, the hammer's initialization sequence flew at electronic speed. GPS verification, INS alignment, rocket motor check, infrared seeker calibration, and trajectory calculation. Meanwhile, 2 S-400 missiles left their launchers, climbing at 2,000 meters per second toward his position. 7.5 meters of bad news. Time to intercept, 35 seconds. He pressed the pickle button. The 250-kilogram French weapon separated from the Soviet aluminum. The MiG jumped, instantly lighter, infinitely more agile. The instant the bomb cleared, Falcon rolled inverted and pulled for the earth. 9.5 Gs, the absolute edge of structural limits. A sound like a muffled crack came from the left wing root. He ignored it. Bent was better than exploding. The dive took him from 5,000 meters to 500 meters in 8 seconds. He accelerated past the sound barrier, Mach 1.1 and climbing. The S-400 missiles, aimed for a level or climbing target, couldn't match the trajectory change. They lost their lock as the MiG disappeared below their minimum tracking angle, continuing on a ballistic path before self-destructing high in the atmosphere. The hammer, moments before, had ignited its rocket motor, pushing the bomb up while the aircraft went down. 2 objects, once one, now traveling in opposite directions at maximum speed. The pilot leveled off at 100 meters, using the terrain to mask his escape. The missile threat was behind him, but fuel was becoming the new enemy. The climb had drained 400 kilograms in 12 seconds. Home was a math problem with one answer: fly perfect or walk. Behind him, the Buck M3 launched, mistaking the climbing hammer bomb for the aircraft. $1 million interceptor wasted on a target already committed to its fate. Satisfying, but pointless. The dam had less than a minute of life left. The hammer reached its highest point, 8,200 meters, and tipped into its terminal dive. Its infrared seeker activated, scanning the world in heat signatures. The concrete of the dam, baked by hours of sun, was a bright white line against the cool blue of the water, a 20-degree temperature differential that looked like a thermal X on the target. The bomb's computer confirmed its target. Linear structure confirmed. Temperature consistent with concrete confirmed. GPS within 10 meters confirmed. The bomb made a final tiny 2.1-degree correction. It was certain. It accelerated through the sound barrier, then passed 340 meters per second. The air rushed past. In the Ukrainian command center, the drone operator watched through his camera as the hammer entered its final phase. His finger hovered over the record button. 7 seconds left. 6, 5. The hammer struck at 340 meters per second, carrying the kinetic energy equivalent of a sedan hitting a wall at over 3,000 kilometers per hour. The smart fuse detonated the 89 kilograms of explosive in less than a millisecond. The shock wave propagated through the dam at 5,000 meters per second, causing the structure to explode outward before the impact side finished collapsing. The breach widened to 60 meters. The crossing point that had supported battalion-level logistics for 3 months ceased to exist. Russian supply lines just inherited a 47-kilometer detour they hadn't budgeted for. Falcon, already well on his way home, never looked back. Mission complete. If you want a deep dive in military, please don't forget like and subscribe for more informative videos about military. Thanks for watching.